Once in a while, I try to do something a little different with my videos for this channel, especially where Star Wars is concerned. With that said, I'll be giving my personal experiences with Star Wars films in the theater to try to better understand how Star Wars is relative to the viewer. This isn't a debate as to whether the Star Wars sequel trilogy is trash or if it's good, specifically The Last Jedi. I'm going to keep my personal opinion of The Last Jedi out of this video. That kind of thing doesn't do anything but cause drama. Instead, I'll be talking about the parts of The Last Jedi that seemed to make sense and some parts that didn't. So stick around for the whole video to see why this Star Wars sequel movie could be seen in a different light than the divisive attention it has received over the last 5 years. If you love Star Wars as much as I do, then you've come to the right place, because that's all I talk about, and I upload a new video about every 3 days. So go on and hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars content, all while joining the fastest growing army of Star Wars fanatics this side of the Mississippi River. Now, on with today's topic. As I said in the beginning, this video isn't expressing my love nor hate for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, nor that of the middle installment of Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I'm only going to point out some things that work for the movie and some things that don't. But first, a little background into my love for the franchise. I know nobody really cares, but it'll make sense in the end, so stick around. My mother and I have seen every Skywalker movie on opening night since 1977. Yeah, I'm that old. I hold those experiences dear to me. Over the 4.5 decades that Star Wars has been a thing, I've gone into each film with new eyes. Not just my own, but that of the generations that have followed me. I brought my older 2 children into Star Wars when The Phantom Menace was released in 1999. Then my younger 2 children into it when The Force Awakens was released in 2015. We've added more and more people to our experience. With The Rise of Skywalker, we had almost a whole row of family with us for the premiere, including my wife and all our kids, some cousins, some aunts, and sisters, and that kind of thing. But it has always been my mother and I as the constant. With the newer members of my family being added with each new Star Wars trilogy, I tried to watch the films through their eyes, having my own expectations and speculations, but reserving them because I knew the youngsters would be seeing Star Wars in the theater for the first time and would have no expectations. Yes, they had been introduced to Star Wars through the films that came before that, but they didn't experience the magic that comes with the theater experience. And it was magical for them. As magical as it was for me in 1977? Yeah, probably not, but they at least understood my passion a little more. While I was in the U.S. Navy during the early 90s, there were no Star Wars releases in theaters. Thank the heavens, because I probably would have gone UA. That's the Navy's term for AWOL, just to get home to see in the theaters with my mother. But during that time, Star Wars saw a resurgence in expanded stories. With the release of the novel Heir to the Empire, I was blown away by Timothy Zahn's iteration of what happened following the events of Return of the Jedi. It kept me occupied and fulfilled in Star Wars content. Soon after, there seemed to be an explosion of Star Wars content in written media. Some good, some really bad. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. I even hoped George Lucas would decide to make films of some of those stories, in particular Grand Admiral Thrawn and the stories from the Old Republic. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Darth Revan and his Mandalorian storyline? Or Darth Nihilus devouring the Force from an entire planet? Yeah, if I had to make my list of my favorite Sith Lords, Darth Nihilus would be number 1. But that hasn't happened yet, and it may never happen. That's a shame. Skipping ahead a couple decades, The Force Awakens' release. The excitement, the anticipation. It was a killer moment for me. Yeah, I said killer, like some 80s rock star. My mother and my older 2 kids also felt the same. My younger 2 were going along for the ride. Now, people can say what they want about that film, as it had elements brought in from the original trilogy, but the storyline was decently solid. New characters, some of the old, and a stormtrooper turned unwitting Resistance member, but it didn't encompass anything from the expanded universe novels. Oh well, this was going to be something different, I guess. Okay, different can be good, as long as it's done well, and I was mildly entertained. 2 years later, The Last Jedi was released. Again, my mother and I went in with no real expectations. As we saw from The Force Awakens, this was going to be different than what we had read in the decades prior. And it was very different. There was no Luke Skywalker saving the galaxy. Instead, we got a beaten down Luke that hid himself from galactic society and the Force itself. Okay, it's a different kind of Star Wars, as I said. But in the moment that I was watching it on screen, I asked, why is it different than the expanded universe? Why do that? Then I looked at my kids experiencing this trilogy for the first time. I thought they knew nothing of the Dark Empire, Heir to the Empire, or anything else written for that matter. And their faces seemed blown away, in a good way. Then I realized the last thing they saw Luke Skywalker in was Return of the Jedi. In the original trilogy, they had asked me, why is Luke so whiny? And it clicked. They aren't super fans. They don't know the accomplishments of the galaxy's favorite hero, other than turning his father from the dark side and having a hand in defeating Emperor Palpatine. They only knew of the Luke Skywalker who was whiny and sometimes unsure of himself. So the version of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi worked for them, and in most cases it worked for the storytelling. Luke Skywalker had become more unsure of himself than ever before. He was afraid that he could no longer live up to his legacy, his legend. So I started looking at the movie a little differently. Luke Skywalker's arc made sense to people who had never read the expanded universe. Again, I looked at Star Wars through new eyes. I'm not saying I agree with the decision to make Luke Skywalker that way, nor am I saying I disagree with it. Only that I found that the story made sense in terms of the generational gap in my family. During The Force Awakens, Finn became my favorite new character. He had so much potential. But then came the Canto Bight bit in The Last Jedi. Yeah, I struggled with this one while I was watching it. We were so used to seeing the rebels as shiny victors in the struggle against the Empire. Even with the side quests of Luke Skywalker on Dagobah and Han Solo and company in the mouth of the giant asteroid space worm, they made sense to that story. Canto Bight? Not so much. It seemed like they were trying to split the characters up in similar fashion to The Empire Strikes Back. But it wasn't working. It seemed disjointed. Not to mention, it made Finn look like a fool. A former stormtrooper who was trying to lay low and not be noticed is now in the thralls of galactic high society, where there was surely attention to be had. Especially since he didn't even dress the part to try to fit in. It felt like a homeless man sitting in the press box of the Kentucky Derby. I know all the literary archetypes they were going for here. I understand that this was a Steinbeck moment that they were shooing in. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. But it still didn't fit for me. I will say Benicio del Toro's character, DJ, added much to the thought that good, bad, it's all relative. So that scene kind of gave me a little bit of a positive there for that bit. Not much. Other than that, they could have shown Finn's failure in a little more true way to the spirit of Star Wars. I struggled with trying to make sense of it, even though the generation gap of my offspring was present. But they liked it, so what can you do? Then the beginning of the climax of The Last Jedi, the ever-disputed Holdo maneuver. A 1 in a million shot at aiming a starship directly at another ship and hitting light speed to destroy that ship and yourself. The odds of this working are astronomical, but there it was on screen laid out before us. This both worked and didn't work for me. The impossibility of the success of this shot made it really dig into my imagination, but the visuals of it blew me away. Why? Because we had never seen something like this in Star Wars before, or any other space sci-fi for that matter. We can argue the physics of the maneuver all day long, but there is no argument that, even as impossible as the act seemed, it depicted how we would see this if we were actually there. It was in black and white, and there was no sound. We were so used to seeing colorful lasers screaming from TIE fighters as their X-Wing adversaries burst into a bright, colorful ball of flames. But here, there was no colorful explosion. No ear-deafening sounds, and this is most likely what it would have really been like if the maneuver was possible. There's no atmosphere for light to diffract into color, and no atmosphere means sound waves can't travel. So there is no sound nor color in real space. Also, no atmosphere means no fuel for a fiery explosion. It felt real, given the odds of this maneuver actually working. Again. Now, there are other things that made me scratch my head, such as the slow chase of the Resistance fleet. Why wait until they run out of fuel before destroying them? Why not speed up and wipe them out already? Okay, dramatic effect, I guess. But it did show us that the Resistance had troubles in the fuel and money department. It also helped to build a little tension, I guess. I know a lot of people, well, really about half the fandom, will never accept these things as true Star Wars. And that's okay. I'm not here to change your minds. I'm just telling you why these things worked for the generational gap, or why they didn't for me myself. I'm not a bandwagon type of person. If someone despises something as much as they do The Last Jedi, I ask why. Not because I have a need to change their minds, but because I truly want to know their opinion. The same goes for those who love it. Why? Maybe I just like to debate and I can take either side for my own entertainment. But I'll never say I like or dislike something because so-and-so said it's bad or it's good. And I'm not saying any of you do that. Just remember, Star Wars is relative. We see it the way we want to see it, and some things work for us and some things don't. There are other aspects of The Last Jedi that could be hit on, but they're hot spots for negativity, such as the fight with Rey and Kylo against the Praetorian Guards, or that Rey even deserves to be a powerful Jedi. And as far as the old expanded universe, or Legends as it's being called now, those stories still exist and are being reprinted for all to enjoy. We can choose those as our own canon if we wish, or we can find a way to mesh the two storylines into believing Star Wars is told in alternate realities. I've heard that one being said. It's all up to our own preferences. I still enjoy a lot of the expanded stories, especially the Mandalorian stories, and I do hope they touch on some of the Boba Fett expanded stories later on. I mean, who wants to see Boba Fett as a sidekick, really? This is Gerald from Star Wars Fanatic signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.